Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin.review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and CoinKite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the COLDCARD and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.review podcast. It's been a little while. We've been doing this a little bit less frequently because, you guys are just not shipping enough. We need more updates. But nothing is happening on Bitcoin. Today I have with me Mr. Seared Salmon. He's back.
Hey, coming in blind like the Bybit signer. How you doing?
Good, man. I blind cosigned that. And on my right, I have Mr. Rob Hamilton from Anchor Watch.
Hey, thanks for having me. Oh, man. Vic coming in hot.
It's blind and hot. All right. Quick housekeeping. Unleashed.chat rebrands to dataMachine.ai. Enables Nostr Wallet Connect and a bunch of other stuff. Go have fun there with some AI DVMs and Nostr.
I'm in right now. I'm not paying attention to the show now. I'm just going to be doing this the whole time. That was like 2 clicks with Nostr Wallet Connect. I'm already in.
Yes. We're just starting the show with word salad right from the top.
Yeah, we want everyone to be asleep right away.
That's right. All right. Let's get into the vulnerability disclosures. ECDSA private key extraction upon signing a malformed input in elliptic library vulnerability disclosure. This was on a JavaScript implementation, of course. So kids, don't use cryptographic libraries that are in JavaScript. Try to import the C version of it or something else. Anything but JavaScript. The JavaScript is great to animate the stuff on the UI, but that's just about it.
Pulling this up now. So this was...
It says here it's because the hex strings were accepted as input types, and that leads to potential nonce reuse, right? That's It's like level 1 stuff. Like we're in Schnorrland now, and people are still having ECDSA issues.
No, they weren't doing type checking.
You could almost create the theory that Schnorr was made closed IP-wise so that ECDSA and RSA were released so that people would never be able to create implementations that are safe. So that the folks would be able to get into it. Whoa. That was an NVK Jones take on that.
I mean, it's funny because even JavaScript, it has a thing called TypeScript where you can do typing. They could have just added types to do type validation. That's incredible. They were just taking that data in. Wow. Yeah. This goes to really not just the danger of using non-standard libraries when it comes to really important things. It's also the peer reviewing, right? You want to have something that's open and sitting there. And this is where libsecp in Bitcoin Core, there's a whole section in that GitHub repo, which is just the cryptography, the math. It's like math.exe. It's just the entire, here's all of it. And everyone's looking at it and it's open source. Everyone in the world very slowly, methodically goes through changes. And it's pretty wild that something like that in a library that people are probably using for their JavaScript wallets. That too. There's really funny, you can see JavaScript jokes where it's 1 plus the string 0 gives you 10. So they're just taking numbers and string and it all is all over the place. It's scary.
It is. And then what the folks do, they just load it from a CDN without checking the hash of the library.
Right.
YOLO.
NPM install. Smash.
It's funny. We actually don't allow NPM stuff in pretty much most of the things we do, including servers, except for side projects. Mm-hmm. So one of our guys does the node stuff, and then we can't run locally unless he precompiles the stuff for us. It's node is literally not allowed on the computer.
I'm guessing you don't feel so happy about cargo either for that reason.
Oh god.
That's the Rust version, basically, the package manager.
Yes. Are they signing the stuff, and like is there like a proper sort of chain of a validation? And
yeah, so there's crates.io, which is actually like the repo equivalent of like where the stuff sits. To my knowledge, there isn't formal signing of the libraries. I'm actually looking into that right now. But you have clean hashes, like, and the nature of a compile time language like Rust, where you can kind of mitigate these things because you can do determinate, like you can look at it and build it out ahead of time.
yeah, you'd think of why are there no better solutions for all these things? Hi spooks.
They're the only ones awake at this point.
We just got a few more Virginia listeners, so hi.
US East 1 just spiked.
well, there's like two solutions, right? Like there's your solution, MVK, where the tried and true BSD minimal dependency, you've audited it a million times, you're comfortable. And there's like the new kids, which is like Nix, where everything is hashed out and you look at the hash and you can deploy an environment specific just for one purpose and one instance. There's probably like a in between.
I think the challenge is, if you want to iterate fast, you're going to break shit. So it goes with that. What I like about the FreeBSD approach in a way is that like it's very few people who are allowed to really merge or do anything. And then, they're less open, in my view, to social attacks, like, and having, or having somebody sort of like, try to squeeze in something after being trusted. Like we saw, what was the project that we saw that happening? Was not OpenSSL. I think it was something else.
I mean, there's been a couple of those in the past year where like people were just trying to like merge things in and they found out they were like in the tests dumping a bunch of base 64 strings that were actually executing code.
Was it the XZ stuff on terminal?
Yeah.
There you go. Yes, that's the one.
That was it.
Yeah, I mean, like the problem is that like when you're making critical, like security critical stuff, like you just can't break things, right? And like it's very hard to defend against like trusted contributors, right? Like you have to review every goddamn space that they put in, right? Like every character, everything. And like that really slows down everything. so yeah, I mean it's not like a super easy to solve problem unless like we get the AIs to go and sort of double check everything. But even then, it's like who trained the models, right? Like,
mitigations would be you would like run your own mirror of the packages, right? And then you would like be like, these are the ones I'm running. I'm not going to pull it from random server. I'm going to pull it from my own server and check the hashes.
But what happened was like a trusted sub contributor pushed in a backdoor into master
for that one specifically. No, specifically that one. I was thinking about the earlier one with with crates.io for Rust or npm node whatever for JavaScript. Like you at least host the libraries on your own server, so you're not just like randomly having a server give you stuff.
But who's reviewing, like who's auditing all the dependencies, right? That's always the question.
There's a value for a company to do that, where they just sit on top of these, and you could charge for like being able to pull the reviewed libraries. Yeah,
that's right.
It's hilarious. I didn't even know what XZ was, or I was using it until I tried brew install Vim, and apparently it was there.
Yeah, it's on everything.
I don't think anyone knows all these dependencies and all the packages that they're using.
It's pretty brutal. All right. Next, ESP32 security concerns. We had a very interesting CVE. The release of the CVE was a little fuddy. However, their mistake on that article was not supporting it with the other problems that it has to validate their security concern. So essentially, like this guys are trying to sell a security analysis product or whatever, but they found a bunch of undocumented commands on the ESP32 Bluetooth, and they essentially allow for a lot of backdoors. The thing is, you need to be running like custom firmware on it, right? Now, what people, and they forgot to mention there, is that it's very easy to run custom firmware and bypass the secure boot on ESP32. There is a bunch of exploits on it. There's even unpatched exploits on it. And ESP32 is just not a good platform for building secure things. It was designed for you to make very cool Christmas lights, blink, block clocks, other things that are not holding Bitcoin. I find that the lack of visibility on the secure boot bypass issues that ESP32 have to be not great. It should come to the forefront. There is this nice little website there called ESP32.fail. It has a list of a lot of ESP32 exploits.
Looking through them now. So I won't say the name of the person because I didn't get their permission to, but they told me, this was 3 years ago, that they have actually seen ESP32s that had Bluetooth disabled get remotely hacked at a DEF CON conference to turn back on remotely. So they didn't even have physical access to the device. They were able to remotely re-enable Bluetooth. I haven't looked through all of these CVEs here. I mean, how many do we have? We have CV.
Well, my list was shorter than the list on that website, but there's more.
Yeah.
There's 30 here. There's 30 CVEs.
And a lot of them are only fixable via silicon, right? That's the very scary part.
I think. And then there is the third part, which is I'm not going to shit on a specific hardware wallet, but there is a popular hardware wallet that's based on ESP32 and it's programmed in China. so technically you don't even need to bypass the secure boot if you're if you're a Chinese factory loading these.
The supply chain, yeah.
It's tricky, right? Now, if you had a very good secure boot chain, technically the factory shouldn't be a big issue, because you have confidence on that chain and you can push things. So anyways, it's just not great. It's scary. People shouldn't be using these platforms. I'm gonna be gray screaming about these things in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and still gonna be the same problem. So we're gonna bitch about it. We're gonna bring it up. People are still gonna do it, and until people lose money, they're not going to change. But I think the worst part is a lot of people are going to lose money without knowing that that's how they lost the money. That is the best part of these attacks, is that you will not know how the money disappeared. You're going to think you got your backup compromise or something, but it really was through something like this. It is scary. If you live in a condo, Bluetooth is a good 50 meters with basic. 50 meters is a lot of floors.
Yeah.
Every floor is 2.5 meters, 3 meters?
Something like that.
So there you go. And then you add a little bit of a high gain antenna to a standard module, boom, you have the whole building. Oh, wait, there is also a building in front of you. Oh, look, all these condo people now been pawned, right? It is tricky. I highly discourage people having any device that for Bitcoin that has Bluetooth in it, because unless you can disable the Bluetooth physically, cut traces or do something, that Bluetooth is there. It could be re-enabled by software.
Does this also then talk about kind of the trade-offs if you're looking for, because Bluetooth tends to be really useful for people who want to replace USB, right? They want a way to communicate with the device. Is this where NFC comes in as the better trade-off of, if you're going to do some sort of communication, you want to be able to, for example, if I use a hardware wallet with Bluetooth, I can connect it to my phone. But then if I have NFC, you're getting that same functionality with trade-offs still, right? Compared to a pure, not, it never connects online, but a better form factor for communicating that data.
So there's a few things at play here. First is Bluetooth is an extremely complex protocol. It's like USB-C. It's a fucking disaster. Right? Just don't have it. Second was designed for mid-range radio, right? So it is designed for you to access remotely. That's why, you forget your phone, even though you have your ear pods and you continue walking, it's still working, right? So with high gain antennas, you can still improve that even further to reach really far. And then third NFC is a much nearer design, right? It's a lot less complex. There's a lot less things happening, and it was designed for you to be literally beside it. However, it's still radio. With the right equipment and the right money, you could technically access it further away, but there is limits, and the limits drop fast. It's an inverse square rule. Inverse square rule applies fast to something like this. But if you're gonna use your hardware wallet for like deep code storage, I would still recommend like permanently disabling the NFC and any radio reading.
Right.
It is sketchy what you can do with it.
Totally right. It's a spectrum of, like, if you're looking at the full spectrum of, I have a seed phrase sitting on my computer, to like, okay, I have something that's not on my computer, but it's Bluetooth enabled, then NFC, and then like something that never even talks to the internet, right? And you have in between with SneakerNet, right? This actually, you were mentioning the complexity of USB-C. I always loved the talk you did back when the VR conferences during COVID. You did a whole like 40 minutes on like how bad USB-C is as a spec. Like the whole USB spec is just, because it's this open thing that people have been building on for decades. So everyone just kind of keeps wedging in new things into the protocol to do new things. And then you just have an ever expanding surface area for interfacing with stuff.
Even like having like a terabyte a second connection in the same line as your like serial. Like, it's like, you can run a screen, you can run a toaster, like you can make a light blink. Like it's insanity, right? And every manufacturer has their own needs, right? Because again, it was not designed to be used for security. So, ideally don't use it. And here's the worst part. Pretty much all hardware wallets, the programming of their MCU is done over USB, either over serial or UART. So, that's also how you do the programming. It's not great.
No.
We can't change the programming because that's how the chips work, but just don't use the USB, right? It's pretty brutal that way.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's how you program ESP32 as well.
I think you nailed it where, ESP32 is amazing for IoT light bulbs, for like homebrew sprinkler system, things like that. But to want to secure your funds with that, it's undeniable that you're increasing the attack surface, maybe for the justification of a low cost just because of the commercial viability. But is that really worth it? It's like very short-term thinking.
It goes to like, if you want to move fast, prototype, have a standard library that you can just kind of like, start, go, run. Like you can get like proof of concepts in there, right? But then I think ideally you're talking about migrating that to a more restrictive area, because the fact that you can quickly prototype is exactly why there's concerns around it.
I think that the biggest issue is like in this industry in general is that like people, rightly so, start with something like ESP32 or Raspberry Pis or something to sort of like create their product, right? But then they don't actually do any of the work of like picking secure chips, building a board and putting the stuff in there and sort of like, creating an actual secure product. They're essentially using like prototyping platforms designed for you to like control Christmas lights, right? To create secure hardware wallets. Like it just doesn't work. It was not designed for that. And then you end up with all this vulnerabilities, right? It's very disappointing that it's been so long and people still can't like get enough talent to build a thing from scratch. That's the bare minimum there. The Ledger guys get a lot of flack for their backdoor as a service and all their new features, but at least those guys are playing for real, right? Like, I mean, they have real security people. They're doing real security research. They're using like real security hardware. It's I want to see more of that.
Yeah, more red teaming.
Yes. Yeah, we used to have a lot more like criticism of security, like Bitcoin hardware in this market. I think everybody's now just sort of like quiet out because they want to sell more or something.
I think that, and also like the last of like the major players that hold out was like the Trezor, right? Now the Trezor even has a secure element. Like everyone, and now that the level of execution integrating that stuff has gone so much higher, it's a lot harder to be like, hey, I pwned this new thing, right? Because in the early days, everyone was just trying to figure out how to do it. So there's a lot of open, but iron sharpens iron.
Didn't they choose the same secure element that UB uses that just got pwned too?
Did they?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking it up right now. I'll live fact check in a minute. But
I think the economics of like the pwning don't make sense either, because you're like taking a shot in the dark. You're trying to pwn something for maybe like a month to like 4 months. You have no idea, and then if you're a good person, you're gonna give them like 90 days or something, and then they're gonna maybe give you like $3,000. So the bad people usually will just take it to the dark web and try to exploit or something, right? So the economics are kind of messed up for the red team, unless you're a behemoth like Ledger, where you can actually have your dungeon team work.
$1 million lab.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it live right now. Trezor uses the Optica Trust MV3 chip, which did have a exploit called EUC leak. The first hit that comes up is the Trezor subreddit, and Stick directly replies saying that they use different cryptography than the one the exploit did, so it doesn't do that. But I am not a security researcher that could look at that and cross-verify the implementation.
Yeah.
But Stick is saying it's not.
It's the same chip. They're just using different crypto accelerators, I think, inside the chip.
Yeah, it looks like the YubiKey one, though, was a pwn. Yeah. It's a YubiKey 5 series, everything with firmware below 5.7. So it looks like it was at least not a silicon hack, that you could upgrade it, and it was a firmware way they could upgrade it, which is nice.
That was like about 6 months ago or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while back, yeah. All right. Coinos revokes Nostr wallet connection secrets due to security leak concerns. Okay. I don't think anybody probably lost money.
Well, I just used Nostr Wallet Connect for dataMachine AI, so maybe you're gonna be posting as me soon.
Yeah, hang on. We can't. We don't have the keys.
I hope not. I don't know what the Coinos like why they removed Nostr Wallet Connect. I mean, for those at home that are still awake, Nostr Wallet Connect is just a nice plugin that allows you to take your NSEC, your master private key on Nostr, and being able to sign into other services, and you have tight access controls on what kind of events you authorize and what data you allow and for how long. You open up that connection. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Hang on. You sent me a DM here with some dataMachine.
I did. I did not show you.
I'm not gonna share. I'm just gonna. Hang on a second. Let's move on, because otherwise it's we're gonna derail the show here. All right, next. So Vivek's Corner, invalid mining jobs by AntPool and friends during fork. Vivek, do you want to talk about that?
I mean, I just wanted it in the list more than anything. I think OXBTC did some more Mempal and node network analysis, and I saw him requesting, I think it was mempool.space or someone else was saying AntPool and friends instead of saying they're different miners. So it goes back to that recurring feeling of like, how decentralized is template construction, things like that.
I mean, the only way to do that is to use Ocean.
Yeah, Datum and Stratum.
Yeah, I mean, Stratum V3 might fix it.
To be honest, I haven't kept up with what's the difference between V2 and Datum still, but yeah. I did see that Datum dropped binary a while back.
And also, you don't need to update your node, I think, infrastructure. Or you don't need to do a bunch of stuff to get Datum to work with existing systems. I think that was the main selling point. You know, like, people can hate on them as much as they want. They are the only people actually shipping shit. All the Stratum V2 folks, like, you know, like, they're not really involved with miners. I don't know, like, it's been years and I don't see it. And then Datum comes around with, you know, the guys from Ocean, and it's like, boom, things are moving. So
shipping code is the best. It's like hypothetically being like, oh, there's a way we could do this, versus like, oh, here's the pull request, let's do the change, right?
Yeah.
It just totally changes the conversation on like, no, like, yeah. We're no longer in hypotheticals. Like, here's a working implementation. And I'm sure in the mechanics of it, there's some trade-offs that Stratum V2 would on paper be better, but having code that can do it now today is a lot easier and more scalable. And since it could plug into existing architecture, like, mining pools aren't looking to do a bunch of dev work and like risk the bag, right?
Yeah.
Like, they want things that are super simple and easy.
I think the problem is like we're not going to change consensus probably for a while or forever. Even though we all want little things, everybody wants a personal little thing in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it's unlikely we get consensus changes, I think a lot of the heavy hitters and a lot of the people who would normally be championing or pushing big things like this are no longer sort of participating. So you end up with, like there is the folks doing a lot of amazing grunt work and, plumbing on core, but it's all non-consensus. It's all just improving the software kind of thing. And honestly, I mean, you don't need to update core. Like, you really don't. Unless there's consensus changes, right? And yeah, I mean, this is what happens to almost all large FOSS protocol level projects, is that like they just slow down on the big things, slow down on the big changes, and they just continue on with people bickering about small shit.
Yeah.
And just to quickly take it back to Datum and Stratum, I think that was originally the drama there. Like, I guess Datum shipped, like you guys are saying, amazing. More alternatives, the better. And apparently Stratum V2 folks felt that there was FUD because Stratum V2 works as is, and there were like proxy servers that could be accessed. So they felt that was FUD on the Datum people's part, and they were FUDding them back. How Datum felt that like their code was not open source. So I guess I think a guy named Jason shipped a binary. It was like in C, your favorite MVK, and you could analyze the assembly, whatever needed. I don't know the current state of things there, but it was a overall positive for the industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, we need more drama. We need more fights. We need to go back to adversarial. Like there's too many kumbaya people now on core. There is a lot of commies, and like, like a lot of the adversarial people, the drug dealers, the people who cared, like sort of laughed. So if you don't have adversarial thoughts, adversarial scuffs, like, in security devices, in Bitcoin Core and all these things, like, it's much harder to find the problems. It's much harder to improve things.
Yeah.
This system was designed for war, right? It was not designed for people to have like, counts of how many, like equity shit there is on Bitcoin, right? Like it was designed for countries to literally like shoot each other. So, we need people fighting over stuff. It's okay, guys. Like we can be friends,
right,
and still like scream at each other over issues. Like, like we don't have to go back to like the sort of, gay shit.
Yeah, I think it's like structurally, I think you're right in that there needs to be more just abrasiveness when we're talking about Bitcoin. Like just like everyone, like, okay, we all agree Bitcoin, cool, but now we need to fight over all the other details around it. Iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
To your point about like the formal graybeards who would kind of put things forward in the past, they have, I think, all have taken a step back. They don't want to be anywhere near consensus stuff, or they're retired on, wherever they are. That's important. I think in the past year, to your point, MVK, about like you can run old versions of core, you can. That's the beauty. Like for a very long, that you can go run a bunch of old versions. One of the big things core changed over the past year is their disclosure policy for vulnerabilities. And I'm looking at the website right now. The last time there was a CVE for core was actually in 2024. Not a consensus break, but basically ways you could DDoS nodes. But that was patched in version 25.
Yeah.
So like how like far back this stuff goes, like
you can see lockdown listening and things like that, right?
We're on version 28 for those at home, right? So like we're talking like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
BitcoinUptime.org. Let's see here. Okay. There is 2 CVEs that matter. That's it.
Yeah. That's right. There were 2, the inflation bug. Those are the ones that actually met right on the consensus level. So like there's a difference between like, oh, you personally like attacked my node versus the entire network had a chain split and like had a break, right? And I'd agree that like, and we're now looking at bitcoinuptime.org, 4,376 days, right?
There's like some sort of threshold though. I believe it was like 17 or something where during a sync it might stall out.
Yeah. But you can patch that yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just bring your blocks, the block.dat. Yeah.
Right.
Bitcoin was designed that way.
Yeah. It was supposed to be that, like, I can, it's the man in the coma thing, right? Like, I can take my software, I can go offline, I can come back later, get caught up to the chain tip of the network. And the last time I reviewed the software, I can access and do everything. To your point, NDK, about like the changing and like people getting in there, James O'Byrne last week just did, it's Bitcoin. I dropped it in the chat. It's PR 31,989 31989 to merge in check template verify with no activation code. Literally just to be like, it's the same code that Jeremy wrote 5 years ago, and trying to just get that in there. And there's discussion around that now to talk about all of the changes around it. So if that's something that interests you on the consensus side, I'd give that a look as well.
Yeah, and James is such an MVP, completely underappreciated because he's polite. Like
I would say that, and also James like touches and works with a lot of this stuff, right? He's not like a full-time core researcher.
Yeah.
Like he touches and uses Bitcoin in a real way.
I mean, he's done a lot of like audit review work on core. He's got like a decent amount of visibility on it. You
should have him on sometime. He's actually someone who understands this stuff.
I don't want to destroy his public image of being polite.
No, he's like, it's great. Like, I like looking through the PR, like it's just, it's trying to also break out this distinction between like, is there technical consensus? How do we activate this thing to be like, the code is good, right? Like this, like there is no, I mean, CTV has been around for 5 years at this point. I think there's a multi-coin Bitcoin bounty on if anyone finds a bug. No one's found a bug in it. It's one of those things that, it's funny because I had the same conversation on RHR last week, the other Bitcoin list show, talking about specifically
the short list.
Yeah, exactly. The short list show, where you go for macro econ stuff, and then maybe you get a couple things at the end for.
Love you, Matt and Marty.
I love you guys. But the nature of it, though, is that I've totally lost my train of thought. Basically, you just have this distinction of, as building a business in Bitcoin, I can't put chips on the table assuming that something's going to change, right?
Yes.
But it'd be cool to, like, as someone who's touching and doing work and building a business in this, it's a whole different conversation than like abstractly thinking about what's good for the network. And I was having a conversation back and forth with Matt Corallo on Twitter about vault use cases and being like, where's the demand? And I was like, hi, I'm helping people secure layer 1 Bitcoin. I would love to be able to have reactive security, please. Right. And being able to kind of like, I think, have open dialogues to those conversations for the gray beards and the wizards and the blue hairs for Matt in the world.
I think there's a lot of armchair expertise around. And like there is folks who have no idea what they're talking about, but they're famous for something else they did. And then it gets tricky. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. Rough consensus,
indeed.
I love the dialogues and the talking points and the ability to see who's just like repeating stuff. Like a common one is, if it works on a signing server already, right? Then why do you need it in the code? And the other one is like, hey, no one's using it today, so you should build a signing server.
Right. And that's, I said, right, like, because anything could be emulated. And like, we've talked about this on the show before, MBK, like your dream is you want to be able to just take all of the logic of all the things you do with the COLDCARD and it's just done. You can go retire, you can go sell coconuts at the beach, you could be fully done. And like, it all just works on chain, right? And there's a long road to get there, to be clear. Like there's many things like 64-bit math. So you can actually do velocity controls based on, if I'm sending 1 Bitcoin, I can do this. But if I'm sending 10 Bitcoin, I have to do that. Like that's further and further out. But like primitives like an op vault, being able to restrict outputs, like covenants as a general bucket, can take all of these human meat space operations and like technical architecture and put it on chain. And you're only taking a couple bytes on chain. It's such a win.
I think the biggest problem and the reason why we're not going to get covenants is because it's coming from the payments people. It's coming from let's scale and try to save poor people. And like, the majority of the economic capacity in Bitcoin doesn't give a shit. It's like, is my, store of value secure? Yes, great. Then go pound sand, right? So like, they need to shift the marketing. They need to shift the narrative into like, hey, we can make store of value even more stored
Right. You can make it even better. Right. This is,
Yes.
I 1,000% agree. That's me selfishly. I'm a layer one guy. I'm a layer one boomer. That's my focus for my company, myself personally, my interest and value prop with Bitcoin. If payment and other things get unlocked, cool, but that's not my hobby horse, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't scale anyways. I mean, nothing like, even shared Utreexos, they're all going to be bound by Bitcoin's like throughput, period. Like,
layer one.
Exactly. Like, go push Cashew for payments. And then, like we can focus on making like very secure store of value solutions. Like for all the hate that Sailor gets from cypherpunks, he did say one thing that was very smart in regards to changing consensus rules, is that like, when you buy BTC, right? Like you are trusting that the contract and the economic incentives are in a certain way, right? And like if you change that, you just change the rules, right? Like that you bought into a contract, and that's sort of unethical, right? I mean, like you can interpret that in many ways. You may even disagree, but like I find that it's an interesting framing of like how you look at the Bitcoin contract, right? Like, did you buy into it? Now, he just maybe technically doesn't understand that like maybe covenants is not going to change economic aspects of Bitcoin, and it might actually improve store of value. But that's a different conversation, right? That's on us to try to get people to understand it.
Yeah, I'd agree. Very, very well said. And I would say that as he is someone who's holding a lot of coins. Imagine with like a covenant like upgrade, he can get orders of magnitude better security and with an op vault than what is possible today with how his coins are being held.
And then he can give you a few basis points to insure it, Rob.
Sure. Listen, like ultimately I'm selling my wares and what I can do, but like that makes it more insurable and lower risk. And this is all coming back to this idea of reactive security. Like, and I was talking about this with Matt. Like when money moves in Bitcoin and something has gone wrong, you have less than 10 minutes. You have before the next block confirms to try and undo it somehow.
Yeah.
With an op vault model, you are able to wait hundreds of blocks, maybe 1,000 blocks, days, weeks, and that's just orders of magnitude better. Less than one block to hundreds, if not thousands of blocks. Like it's just a better way. And it's ultimately a key management problem at the end of the day. Yeah. Bitcoin security ultimately becomes a key management problem, but you're providing a larger surface area to be able to mitigate risks.
Yes. All right. And with that, let's get the two mini script cheerleaders who bullied CoinKite and COLDCARD into moving another step forward in miniscript being closer to master. So the COLDCARD release, Edge release, is this the one that's here? Here, Edge release.
Yep.
Oh, there was another one, but anyways. So there's the Edge release version 6.3.5x for Mark IV and version 3.5635QX for the Q.
Yep.
Catches up with the release above we're going to mention. And this firmware changes the scary messages from the cover, from the login. We still suggest people use this with quorums where this is not a single point of failure key.
Right.
Very important. But we feel way more confident and we think this is qualified for these mini script wallets like Anchor Watch. And both of these are on both hardware solutions have these. So now you can mini script out to your heart's desire.
Yeah, I just to start, I mean, thank you for kind of updating the language and continuing to work with us. Like I have spent dozens and dozens of hours with the MK4 and the Q specifically with the miniscript stuff. And I'll say, and probably in the order of hundreds of hours at this point over the past 2 years or so. And I have yet to find anything that was a money losing bug. Right. There hasn't been any exhibited behavior that would cause that. Most of the time, friction points are around the interactivity with the descriptors, which is always a formatting thing, right? Just making sure. And I would say I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is why I'm misformatting the string this way, right? So in that sense, like I feel great about, the offering as it exists today. I think this is part of what I was also talking about last week on RHR is just understanding ways to further streamline the UX. That was a whole conversation around, and just to rehash it for this group and the audience listeners that are here, is that the moment you leave single sig Bitcoin, there is now more state. There's more things that need to be known, right? And if it's a 2 of 3 multisig, if you have 2 keys, that's not enough information to be able to recover the funds. You need the output descriptor. And the way this works, to take a step back at a higher level, is that when you spend money to Bitcoin, right, and the moment you're using a script, right, you're using not just a single private key, like a single public key, right, you're doing more rules. You need to be able to not only have the necessary key material, you need to be able to prove to the entire Bitcoin network, hey, this address maps to this hash, which maps to this script. Right. And so when you get to multisig, you have to have that output descriptor. So you have the ability to show, I control the script that is able to access this address. It is added that when you go to something like Miniscript, where you're not just doing a multisig, which in the sense of, since it's always just n of m, you can pretty easily say it's a 3 of 5, a 2 of 3, whatever it is. You need to be able to also understand, okay, I'm not just doing 2 of 3, 3 of 5. I'm also now doing things like a 2 of 3 that becomes a 1 of 3. So how do you actually display that information? And the simplest way of being able to do that right now, in the sense of just technically, is just presenting that information on screen, which is the wallet policies BIP, which I think is BIP 3, a descriptor wallet, the wallet policies for descriptors, which is BIP 388, and being able to basically show the high level information. And then also the added layer that I talk about is you also want to know the XPubs, right? You have to know and trust the XPubs, because even if the descriptor is like, oh, I'm doing this 2 of 3, if the XPubs are not the XPubs you think they are, that's essentially an attack.
It's amazing to me that, like, essentially outside of COLDCARD, nobody else checks the XPubs or stores the XPubs of the other signers.
No. The only other, I think there's only one other one to my knowledge that
maybe Bitbox.
It's actually the it's not maybe the Bitbox does. I haven't played with the Bitbox in a while, I'll be honest. I've been meaning to, because thinking about just things to work on. But the Keystone wallet, which is the former Kobo vault.
Yeah, but that's like Coin wallet. Nobody uses that.
No, it is. No, it is. But it was really interesting that they specifically allowed you to do that. Right. And the reason why this is important is not for verifying, also being able to verify change addresses.
Yes. Which is the most important thing that there is. Like, yes. It is amazing that wallets don't check for change address. It's like say you have one big UTXO, all your money UTXO.
Yeah, I have 100 Bitcoin.
You want to send just 1% of that out. That needs to return to you. And wallets don't check that.
It's the most important part, right? If you have 100 Bitcoin in a UTXO and I send NVK 1 Bitcoin, that 99 Bitcoin comes back to me as change. It's more important than verifying where I'm sending the funds to, that it's going back to the chain.
I'm going to keep on stealing COLDCARD until some other wallet does the same. And then I'll promise them, I'll mention them.
The COLDCARD, doesn't it also, if I set up a multisig of just COLDCARDs, you're able to set up the quorum fully offline?
You can do the quorum offline, yes.
Yeah.
Eventually, who knows, maybe Miniscript one day.
Maybe, that'd be nice. Yeah. And going back to like the descriptor, like the problem is that unless you're technical, like it's a lot of information to be able to fully parse and digest. I mentioned this on the show when I was talking about this last week on RHR, is that we at AnchorWatch do a bunch of audits offline. I'm not going to go into the intricacies of that, but like we do quadruple checking of many different things in many different places to make sure before we set up the policy that your actual thing is being correctly formatted, including ownership of XPubs, right? So for us, it's something we've put a lot of thought into, and we tried to basically be able to abstract away that because we're running those processes. It's something though that if you're doing something in your basement by yourself, you have to understand this stuff. And Salvatore at Ledger did a really great talk at TabConf last year. I just retweeted it this week because it was a good chat talking about high entropy and low entropy. Humans are bad at high entropy. And that's why we use hardware wallets, right? To keep the secret, to do the thing, right? And the problem with like output, just like these it's like really high entropy. It's really confusing to look at it. So how do you try and compress that information to be lower entropy so I can look at my screen and be like, oh yeah, I'm setting up this vault between myself, Vic, and NVK. Because an XPub, high entropy. Like it's a bunch of letters and numbers, and you're like, if you're not know what you're doing, like you can't at a glance verify it. So I think there's a role in the future. I don't know how it exactly finally takes form. It would be really awesome, though, if I could have a way where I could be like, oh, I'm setting up a multi-sig with myself, Vic, and NVK, and it's just in plain text, and the hardware wallet is doing that lift. I don't know how to do that, though. To be clear, like, it's a big problem.
So there's a couple of things that I wish we had that would help a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
So on the signing side, PSBT should have been signed.
Yes, we've talked about this.
If PSBTs were signed, at least you have confidence that what you're signing is the same thing that was displayed on the wallet software, right? The coordinator.
Like the coordinator, if you're using Sparrow or whatever, you at least have some chain of custody of that this came from this device.
Yes.
And that key doesn't have to actually handle funds on chain for the world to see, but it could help you for your own internal transfer ops. Absolutely.
For the sign script, that was the goal of BSMS, right? It was Bitcoin multi-sig something. I can't remember now what it stands for.
Bitcoin multi-sig secure setup or something. Yeah.
There you go. That was a secure setup. It was supposed to be signed.
Bit 129.
But it's usual bike shedding, whatever. So like I think one thing we could do is we could hash and then we can map the script hash to BIP39 words. So you could have, like, you don't need all that entropy, right? Like the 256 bits, but like, or 128. You can do lower, right? Like you can have, say, like, just like 4 words or something, which is probably what?
4 times 24 times
60 bits?
Yeah, 2048. I'm just looking at the number of entropy. Yeah. Times 4. Sorry, I'm doing math live.
That's okay.
It would be, it's 2 to the 11.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough.
2 to the 44, sorry.
Yeah, because remember, this is for double checking. This is not against an actor trying to swap it.
Mm-hmm.
So what you would do is you can map the script to, say, 4 words, and then you display the 4 words on the coordinator, display the 4 words on the screen of the hardware wallet, and then you have some confidence that the script is the same.
Yeah.
So, but you can review that script in a big screen on a computer or something.
Right. And what I'm thinking about this too, it's kind of like the anti-phishing words you get on the COLDCARD.
Yeah, exactly.
You get 2 words to boot, right? Right. So you get something. That's interesting too, because you also don't have to worry about the XPUDs. You're just looking at, like, this is the script template, and it just canonically comes out to 4 words.
Yeah.
In theory, someone could grind and attack one that matches the same 4 words in theory, but that's already orders of magnitude.
It's more like a low-hanging fruit kind of thing, right? Like it's not like a long con kind of deal. It's for the setup time.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And you can display the script on a QR as well, right? So you can double check. So you can have COLDCARD maybe scan the screen of your coordinator script.
Yeah.
And just double check that you're signing the same script. I mean, there's a few things like that. I like the idea of like very few words to check things. It's like it really works well and people get it. If we had advanced hardware, like much more complex hardware, then I'll just use emojis, right? Like a couple emojis, but like we can't map out. Remember, like Signal used to use emojis for you to double check that the crypto matched, that your connection was secure between 2 parties. They would show you a couple emojis and they would show the other party a couple emojis.
Right.
That was their way of checking that hash. So anyways, like something like that, right? I'm sure there is like a technical name for this. But yeah, I think that could work.
Emojis is great too, because you only need a couple of them to map out the whole space.
But emojis, it's a whole other set for you to keep track, and like where are you going to store that in a hardware wallet, right? And how are you going to display them?
You just have the UTF-8 characters and just be UTF.
Yeah, no, dude, we're so far from that on our very limited hardware devices.
Of course.
Anyways, so yeah, I mean that maybe could work.
Having put in hundreds of hours into this stuff, I feel very good about it. Haven't found any issues yet or any cross compatibility. I feel fine talking about the fact that we use Bitcoin Dev Kit, right? I'm pretty proud, like, user of Bitcoin Dev Kit and being able to build out what we do. I've never had inconsistencies between information Bitcoin Dev Kit is processing and the COLDCARD being able to interpret it and sign and execute. It's actually pretty cool when you sign a PSBT. when you're using time locks, you have to alter the end lock time field. And it actually gets shown pretty clearly. Like the COLDCARD would tell you, like, hey, you're signing for this. Also, it's not valid until this date in the future, right? The COLDCARD doesn't know what time it is because it doesn't talk to the internet, but it's able to say, like, hey, yeah, you're signing this transaction. Also, it's not valid until this block height or this calendar time. And it's clean.
Yeah. Talking about that, so new release version 5.4.1. This is done master, right? In version 1.3.1 for Q. So there is this new message signing feature. You can sign a message from a secure note. That could be your script.
Right.
And then you can scan with the QR scanner and just, like do a dance. Delta mode enhancements. Now you can, now it's like, this is cool. So if you use your Delta pin, you can the devices hide your secured notes and passwords. So if you have to give away the device, like entry pin, right? Say you have a passphrase for the thing, for your stuff, or it's multi-sig, but you still have to give an attacker access to it, and you don't want to lose your passwords or secure nodes. If you use the Delta pin, it hides them. You can also set it so it deletes the seed vault as well.
It wipes, right?
I think it's hide or wipe. Hide or wipe.
Yeah.
You choose. So that's further on that.
I don't know. Most people know how cool Delta is, how you can even sign the transaction and broadcast it, and how
it fails.
The network will validate it. Yeah.
we generate a invalid signature for your transaction.
So sick.
It's not going. It's not my fault. I signed. And right, address display changes. So we liked where Trezor started with that whole putting a gap between every few digits on addresses, so it's easier to read. And we improved that a bit by adding inverse video as well. So it's very easy to read now addresses, so you can double check them.
Nice.
And that goes to say that hardware wallets should have a screen.
Right.
And without a screen, you can't double check where you're sending the money to.
Right.
Especially if your software stack is lying to you, right? So, because see, if you have an app on iPhone, it doesn't matter if the app is open source or not. You cannot validate that what you're running on your iPhone is that same app code, right? And if you have a server involved in that, you also cannot validate that the company that's giving you the stuff is doing what it claims to do, or it's not being hacked or whatever. So that screen is paramount to double check your destination address script or whatever. What else? Enhancement, BIP32 XPub obsolete. Yeah, there was a bunch of other little changes. Oh, yeah, you can verify the barbecue QR, RFC, sign RFC messages. Anyways, a bunch of other stuff. Go check it out. Sparrow version 2.1.3, one key Pro and Classic 1 support, BIP 329 labels export, including additional fields. So yeah, so there was a campaign, me being part of the instigators to bully Craig into adding other accounting fields to BIP 329 because that's what we all need. So now it supports a bunch of other little things. Doc Hex was, I think, who made the PR on BIP 329. So we got some of that. And yeah, so a bunch of other updates to Sparrow.
Xavier is the huge champion of that, right? Like he was trying to show up for 2 years, trying to get some traction. He must be happy.
Yes. As usual with software, it's about bullying. Like we got bullied into changing the mini script warning message. Bullying works.
Well, it's funny, right? On the outside, it looks like bullying, but there's like a methodical process to everything.
There is.
Where, someone's frustrated because it's chicken or egg. How can they test it if it's not in prod or able to be used?
Yeah.
So you'll compromise there, but also they'll be like, oh, MVK is playing ball or something. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Like you have to slowly upgrade things, find bugs, fix, upgrade, find bugs, upgrade.
But think about bugs. You still owe me one.
Rob still owes me reg test access, so I'm passing the can to him. Yeah.
Reg test is great.
Right. And then Lark version 1.1.0. This is Craig's redo of HWI. And he keeps on updating for all the hardware wallets.
Incredible service.
That's the Java-based HWI, right?
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, he's the only person in the world that wants it either. So in Java. So, I mean, he had to quote it.
Him and like Chris Stewart, right? Java guys. Or anyone else in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Krux version 25.03.0 Taproot with WSH miniscript support. Eastern egg reveal hints have been introduced. Swiping sideways to change keypad set and a few other things. More camera modes. More intuitive temper check. Other bug fixes. Krux is so cool. They do use ESP32. It's the K10 chipset. You know, we talked about ESP32 issues, but, you know, the difference is these guys are focused on, you know, experimentation and multi-sig and things that sort of like de-risk some of those issues. So it's, and you load it yourself. It's not pre-programmed in China. So, you know, it does have a different security path there.
I keep telling myself I need to go buy one of these and put it all together. I've been meaning to do that.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I see on here it says SD card PSBT signing. That's fantastic, you know. The more options, the better.
Yes.
Like I like QR and NFC, but they're not perfect either because of whatever training the users to get phished or
I love the Krux to double check transactions, to double check keys and do things like that. It's much better than a Raspberry Pi because, you know, it's a lot less attack surface. And it's nice and DIY. You can get the parts on anywhere, really. And it's touchscreen. Kind of fun.
Yep.
Anyways, Cove Wallet version 0.2.1. Add more plausible deniability to decoy pin, pretend change, to change pin and trick pins in settings screen. Make it easier to click change pin in the settings. iOS beta is now available on test flight. Guys, seriously, this wallet is awesome. I think everybody should download and help test, help Praveen. There is a group you can join to give feedback. So, and he's really plowing through it. So it's supporting NFC, it's supporting QRs. You know, it's really simple. He's not adding Lightning. So it's like a Bitcoin only sort of like simple wallet to use. It's BDK based. I can't speak highly enough of this project. I really think, you know, it's going to be a nice little contender for, you know, I need a simple phone
Mobile
wallet. For,
you know, a lot of mobile wallets fell into this trap of adding Lightning.
Yes.
Because like, oh, it's Lightning, it's payments. And the problem is that like that's a lot of code and infrastructure you need to maintain and worry about. And now you have to worry about a Lightning service provider, right? Like now you have to deal with other vendors where like, you know, back in my day, all the mobile wallets were just layer one. Back when I got into Bitcoin, there was like 20 different ones that would run, you know, they were just hanging around. And being built on BDK is such a great improvement too, just like allowing someone to be able to ship and build, not have to worry about the low level cryptographic primitives, and, you know, like Praveen's able to just kind of lift and shift on what's on BDK. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think this would be a fantastic wallet for people who need, you know, a spending wallet or maybe a watch-only wallet because, you know, they support harder wallets on it.
Yep. UTXO freezing I'm seeing here. Upcoming update will include coin control.
Yes.
Like that's just like an obvious, like those are great things. My favorite anecdote, like we added coin control, it was like an afternoon because BDK just makes it really straightforward.
He's iterating really quickly, right? I think I heard this wallet maybe like 2 months ago because he posted some BBQR library in Rust. How old is this wallet? Do you guys know?
It's like, I don't know, like 6 months maybe or something like that. Like he's just full-time working on it.
Nice.
Yeah. It's, and there is a designer involved. That's why the app looks great. The UX is good. There is a designer literally designing the screens and he's coding them up. Like it's a great little pairing there. I think we need more of that. Yeah. Next is Nunchuk Desktop version 1.9.43 and Android version 1.9.64. So yeah, Nunchuk is another great little phone wallet. It's a little bit more complex to use. I keep on giving Hugo a lot of grief on DMs to simplify the wallet and, you know, but they do support like a lot of different things. There's like end-to-end encrypted chats for you to do your multi-sig collaboration. There is like multi-key support, multi-key support, all kinds of stuff. This is really
bullying works. See, everyone just bullies everyone. Everyone just bullies everyone and making their stuff better.
Yes.
I see Taproot multi-sig in here. That's awesome.
Yes.
Nice.
It's always good to see where we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big proponent of this too. It's all written in native C, so they're not a bunch of serializations running around, right?
That's right. They are all native. I think that's the way to do it. Either you write yourself all native or you go BDK. Just don't do any of the shit yourself if you're not a wallet dev, and nothing in JavaScript.
We don't do anything in JavaScript that's actually to the key infrastructure.
No money handling.
No, it makes the website run and pretty. That's what it does.
That's right. BTCPayServer version 2.0.7 display fiat amount preview in transaction detail page, greenfield adding endpoint to set server email settings. Bitcoin Keeper redesign manage subscription screen, support external key for miniscript vaults, support Spectre DIY for miniscript vaults, improve COLDCARD NFC integration, improve old wallet speed. Nice. So Keeper, I mean, they're moving faster too. It's like a nice little competitor to Nunchuk. They both have sort of like different ways in how they went about things, which is nice. So you have choice.
Yeah.
I like them. BlueWallet.
Yeah, you got Ben Kaufman.
Yes.
Yeah, Ben Kaufman ships, man.
Yeah. He went on sabbatical. He went on sabbatical for a bit, and he's back in Bitcoin. He's just shipping.
Yes. BlueWallet version 7.1.0 adds support for importing mini keys, Cassius coin, Satori coin, etc.
You're debating on redeeming a Cassius coin. Just let me know, and I'll just buy it from you at spot price, and then I can go sell it for a 30% markup. Just throwing that out there. That right. You never want to redeem those things.
Yeah.
Unless it's a president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. He had to.
I bet he converted to Trump coin.
Totally.
He had to seed the Trump coin with his Cassius coin that it was given to him. I know somebody who gifted him one. It's brutal.
Thanks.
Yeah. We know.
Yeah. No, rough.
Bitcoin Safe version 1.1.0 support for Jade, that build, Xpub import. So these guys are moving. It's an interesting little project.
I met them there was a Rust Summit at Bitcoin Park last year, and it's a great project, simple GUI. It gives me vibes of like the Electrum server, like very basic, going through the steps, and also it uses Nostr, right, for group communication.
Yeah.
So if we're all in a multi-sig, we can use Nostr to coordinate in the client.
That's a part that I don't like. Don't use Nostr for private DMs until there is forward privacy.
Double ratchet.
Yeah, they don't have the PFS still, right? I mean, you guys have like a NIP or something for that, but it's not deployed.
Well, the thing is, like, this is the part that I guess Bitcoiners don't get about Nostr, is that Nostr doesn't have to have hard consensus.
Right.
So, like, if some people want to implement double ratchet, if some people want to implement MLS, some people want to do something else. I mean, it's client sort of choice, right? Yeah. There is a lot of work being done on that, and there is a few different specs and people building on it. But yeah, it's moving. Bitkey App version 2025.1.1 inheritance is here. You can now, there is no actual, so they have an inheritance thing.
The inheritance feature, which is kind of similar to Casos, right? Where you're able to take your phone key and transfer to someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I've been disappointed at their marketing. I feel like, it's not transparent. It bothers me. I've written a little bit about it. And I think it's a great solution, stepping stone for people coming off exchanges. But, it's like a full trust me kind of setup. And people should migrate out of it once they start understanding and having more coin. I don't think it's a thing for people to stay on, Pubco. All right, libwally-core version 1.4.0. Add caching, signature, hash generation, PSPT signing, making faster, and a bunch of other updates.
I saw a point where it said add support for deriving RSA keys from BIP85. Dude, Do people use Bitcoin keys to derive RSA keys? I think SecP also has this, but I was wondering like if you guys have heard people doing this in practice or anyone using these RSA keys for anything.
RSA keys for which one?
libwally-core had an update where it said BIP85 support. You can derive RSA keys via BIP85 now.
I guess that makes you, because you have a master seek, where would you use it? I don't even know where anyone's using RSA for anything Bitcoin related right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to do that for some sort of side encryption thing.
Yeah. There is, what did GitHub and a bunch of other sort of like SSH-based Git solutions started offering now? There was a new spec, GitHub keys. It was not a DSA stuff. It was something else that's more efficient that people are using.
I saw SSH, GPG, something else.
No. Okay, because there's DSS, which is DSA. There's RSA, but there is one more that people are starting to use, becoming common. I can't remember. Anyways.
Yeah, so you guys don't know what RSA keys with BIP85 is used for, if there's any applications that are out in the world.
I mean, the BIP85 part doesn't truly matter because that's just the way I can have my seed plate buried under a mountain. I can generate child RSA keys, but I don't know offhand why anyone is using that for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. BISC 2 version 2.1.6. RoboSats version 0.7.4-alpha. Boltz updated. Zaprite updated. Blockstream Explorer API update. A new feature include 99.9 SLA transparent pricing. Wait, so it's like a paid Block Explorer?
Yes, they are offering a service where you are able to use their infrastructure and you just get a dedicated endpoint. And then if you're a business or a service, whatever, and you don't have to worry about all of the infrastructure overhead of maintaining your own Electrum nodes, you can tap them.
Isn't Mempal.space free?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also have a commercial side where you could have your own endpoints too. So it's interesting seeing like these essentially two forks battling it out now in the market.
Yeah. And you can also just run your own, right?
Yeah. There's a beta tier where you get a couple 100,000 requests per month. So if you're just like, I will say, if like you're just like in your basement, you're coding up a basic prototype app, great use case to just throw this in there to like be able to have something to hit against. Because while you're just shipping and building the front end and the wallet and the architecture for your own app, you don't have to worry about the blockchain source.
Right.
That's probably a great use case to start poking around with that.
All right. Mempal version 1.5.2. Iris Wallet. Oh, wait. Am I? Yes. Iris Wallet Desktop, Utreexo, ESP Miner updated. All right, Project Spotlight. Reorg Calculator, a calculator to estimate the probability of an attacker reorganizing blocks and considering their hash power and the time ratio. Cool.
Very cool.
Bitcoin Core config generator. Didn't LOP used to have a...
Jameson had one. This is a TUI though.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So, random idea. Speaking of a TUI, terminal user interface, right? Do you think there's any demand for a Bitcoin wallet that's a TUI? So, like, you can just go into a server and just like do things without having a full graphic user interface?
I mean, it never hurt anyone.
Right. Just another form factor, right? So you can just SSH into a server somewhere and do wallet ops without it being... I had this random idea the other day. There's some stuff I use that has really cool terminal user interfaces, and I was wondering why no one ever hit the UX for that. But I think it's probably because it'd be really technical people who'd want to consume that. And then at that point...
I think nobody wants to share their data.
Oh, no. If it was open source, like literally like download this like thing, and then you can just like apt install whatever, and then you have a little TUI that just sits there and hangs out.
Yeah. Okay.
Not that I'm busy enough, I'll just go do something else too. But it's cool though, terminal user interface for this is nice too if you're just like remoting into a server somewhere and you're trying to set up core. Like it's nice to be able to just like hit the buttons and then have the config file spit out.
Yeah.
Like that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin Core snapshots, fast track your nodes set up with pre-synced blockchain data. Boot protocol, decentralized protocol for Bitcoin hashing nodes to share block rewards and reduce variance. Multi-sig backup, encrypt and inscribe your key of an multisig descriptor recover with any key seeds.
No, so this goes to what we were talking about earlier about you need to have all of this data. So you could do an encrypted blob, I guess using ordinal inscription stuff, right? And then you have that as your data recovery. So as long as you have one of your keys, you could go to that encrypted blob and recover the whole output descriptor. So that it removes that need to make sure you have a redundant digital copy backup of the output descriptor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Wallet backup, a document, standardized Bitcoin wallet backup formats.
I actually have a random shout out. I'm going to drop it in here. Thunder Biscuit, part of the Bitcoin Dev Kit team. He's an Android dev. He does some really cool stuff. He has reg tests in a box. It uses Podman as a Docker, like the Docker instantiation, and it spins up the node, Electris, and like a really simple like HTML block explorer. So if you're doing local dev, for those at home, like reg test is a Bitcoin network type where you basically can spin up your own local like entire network on your machine. You can give yourself a bunch of coins, you can move them around, you can do all your testing, following the Bitcoin consensus rules with some modifications, right? Because you're just mining blocks to yourself. But it's a cool way to do dev testing, right? And have like God mode over a blockchain. Whereas like a SIGNet would be like, I'm hosting a service like MutinyNet and I want everyone to be able to come log in and like view it. Reg test is like for like my local machine, I could do testing too, right? So it's a cool little service. Reg test in a pod. Thunder Biscuit on the Bitcoin Dev Kit team put that out. Pretty nice.
Yeah.
There's I think another one that people like called Nigiri, right? Or am I mixing?
Nigiri? Yeah. No, Nigiri is another one too. There's like a whole spin up of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, these are so clutch just for getting the environment set up so quickly.
Yeah. This is like developer tooling, which is one of those things that often gets overlooked because it's not the end consumers, but these things being available just helps people ship faster, right? Being able to like have this stuff just off the shelf that you can take and you can go build tools. Dev experience, like user experience, is something that a lot of people in Bitcoin just look over. And it's such a force multiplier to have this stuff that you can take off the shelf and run with because you spend more time actually solving problems and less time figuring out the plumbing and the piping to be able to do the work. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's move on to the vulnerability disclosures that were not critical. Well, critical for somebody else, not for us. JavaScript injection attack was on Safe Wallet, and there was the Bybit attack that resulted in $1.4 billion stolen. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. Don't use JavaScript and check on the hardware wallet, which is impossible because Ethereum's design made it impossible for you to double check.
Yeah, so there was I guess, how many lines smart contract that they had to verify from the browser on a Ledger wallet via USB.
Yep.
That sounds like a setup for disaster.
No, it's pretty brutal, right? Like, one thing I've been saying is that, like, it was not technically their fault, but practically was for Ledger. Like, because, listen, if you allow your users to sign something and you give them confidence that they're signing something that, like, they think they're doing it securely, you're part of the problem. Just ditch support for Ethereum. That's it. Sure, you're going to lose some sales, but you know what? Like, at least you're not signing shit or giving people confidence to something that they're going to lose money on.
Have you done a Bitcoin.review since this Bybit hack happened?
I don't think so.
So this is, it's wild, right? The CEO of Bybit was like, I was the last signature and I used my ledger and signed it. Like, this is a huge distinction in how Bitcoin versus Ethereum works. Bitcoin, all of the state, all of the information that's relevant for a transaction lives at the Utreexo where you're sending the money from, right? Whereas Ethereum, you have this big arbitrary smart contracting language that has a bunch of information. And the reason why hardware wallets are so valuable is that it can deconstruct this state in plain English, be like, you are sending 10 Bitcoin to this address. Do you approve? Right? And the problem is with ETH, the nature of how that all works, you actually can't have that same level of clarity when you're doing these larger arbitrary smart contracts if you're not setting it up correctly. So, like, I'll send it over to you guys in the chat. Like,
send it to this gigantic hex.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, right? So I just dropped it in the chat. Like,
brutal.
What you're looking at is message hash, and it's a bunch of hexadecimal, right? And unless you're somehow in parallel recomputing and making sure, yep, that's the hash I should be signing. You're not doing you're blind signing.
Yeah.
You're not actually verifying anything. And this is just a huge trade-off between Ethereum and Bitcoin, and the design decisions and trade-offs are being made.
Yep.
This is one of those downsides. You actually can't meaningfully discern this stuff. You think output descriptors are a pain in the ass? Like, this is every time you do a transaction. At least with the output descriptor stuff, it's the first time you set up the wallet, you do this kind of secure handshake. And then going forward, you're fine. This is every time you just move money, period. Because all of the state is in the contract address, right? So this is just a huge miss to have something like that kind of go on.
And then, to shit on Ethereum a little more.
Of course.
Malicious PyPI package set utils steals Ethereum private keys by hooking wallet functions. Amazing. Something like this only happens because, they know those people don't check the code.
Oh, that's wild. It literally just sat there and saw.
Yeah.
Well, one, you're using you're not even using Python, you're using set utils. Okay.
Yeah.
That has 1,077 downloads today. Well, the package is gone now, thankfully. I'm just looking. Disguised as the Python simple utility set, it mimics the widely used library Python utils that has 712 million downloads.
Yes.
And it's just called set utils. And all it was basically just being able to rip out the data.
Yep.
There you go.
People are getting really clever with this. I saw maybe a month ago or something like that. There was Google ads for like a fake homebrew, right? Where when you're trying to install and set up your Mac OS and you need a package manager, most people would just go homebrew. And I guess the original script was like a malicious code base, and Google just allowed them to be advertised at the top. And it was like,
they're probably paying a lot of money.
Yeah. That's how everybody lost money with blockchain.info back in the day. It was like Google would allow all these ads to be above blockchain.info's website that took you to malicious sites that asked you to type in your hash for your private key.
Oh, God.
I'm looking at this exploit. It sat and listened for whenever from key or from mnemonic was called. So it just sat on your machine whenever you were running code, and whenever you did crypto things, it was like, okay, I'm gonna listen now. Oh man,
pretty brutal.
Yeah, pretty brutal.
All right, to open SSH vulnerabilities, expose clients and servers to attacks. OpenSSH is an absolute clusterfuck. USB side channel attacks, a new privacy threat through hub congestion because you have all your signals going through the same fucking hub. Security researchers discover a novel USB side channel attack that exploits USB hub congestion to monitor user activity without physical access to the malware installation. Nice. They can get keystrokes recovery attacks, USB mouse detect, typing patterns, and a bunch of stuff. It's a disaster. Don't use USB for hardware wallets. Zaprite, a critical Android security flaw exploited to target student activists in Serbia. Nice. Don't use Android. Messenger vulnerabilities, mesh tasket firmware vulnerability allows impersonation. That's nice to see that being patched. Git Venom, a cryptocurrency theft campaign use fake GitHub projects. Nice. We're going to only see more. We haven't even started in this industry with the attacks because it's just so much money to be stolen. Stablecoin payment firm Infini loses 50 million in exploit developer deception suspected. $5 rich attacks. There were a few. So yeah, man, what a clusterfuck.
The dev in the stablecoin theft held on to admin keys after the project was over.
Yeah, classic. I mean, you want to pound the project, pound the dev.
Well, that is a wild thing too. Like being in industry, maybe you get this too. Also, I was advertising, hey, I'm looking to make some hires. The amount of random accounts that would reach out with random GitHubs,
yes,
and who are you? No, I'm not. No, I'm not even taking a call with you. Like it's not like you just having some real presence and being able to see this stuff. Like, by the way, looking to hire full stack dev. If you're interested, hit me up.
Non-spook, please apply to Rob.
Yeah, non-spook, please. But if you made it this far into the podcast, that's a pretty good initial indicator. You can email me at rob@anchorwatch.com with your resume, and having a real GitHub page too. And this happened a bunch in ETH. They were hiring North Korean hackers. They were just like, oh, I have a monkey JPEG. And then they hire and work on a project and they just take all the money. Not that was even possible in our architecture, but it's one of those things to be mindful of.
You should be a spook-friendly organization because they're going to get in no matter what. So just design your systems, your code, and everything in a way that, you're actually benefiting from all this NSA training.
Well, this is what I'm like. Our architecture set up in a way where, like, the nature of how it's all set up is distributed in that sense. So, like, even like there are no keys stored on the server. So, okay, you got into the server. Okay, there's nothing there. I think it's smart to do that. Like, this is actually what the Taproot Wizards did when they hired Rindell. They're like, Rindell's a spook. We would love a spook on our team. That would help with our marketing with Mossad.
That's right.
Right? They just kind of bring him, and you just like open arms. You just bring them all in.
Yes. Leverage all their training. Okay, audience questions. Thanks everyone who sent in. Okay, audience question for guests to comment on flaw in Bitcoin Core regarding mining pools and their vulnerability against block withholding attacks. Referring on this post, it was a non. Man, I find a lot of this issues to be not a huge issue. So this was by Steve Barbour.
Mustache in chief of Bitcoin.
Mustache in chief, learn to coal. Most Bitcoiners are not aware of significant flaw in Bitcoin Core. A mining pool can never be both publicly accessible and privacy focused because they will be attacked by something called a block withholding attack. This means people who are interested in censoring resistance will have to pool their hash power privately, which is very difficult, hard to scale when you're trying to conceal your identity. The result is that all mining pools will trend towards KYC, state worship centralization, making network censorship relatively easy to enforce. Unfortunately, the only known solution is a hard fork. I don't think it's that.
I don't even know what the hard fork is. How's the hard fork fix that?
Yeah, I don't know what the hard forks would be, but I don't think this is a big issue.
I agree with the assessment, but maybe not the conclusion. And it's like Cloudflare, right? We all use it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're just going to have like different markets of people that are looking to be more privacy focused, that are going to put their hash in, like all those BitAxe just found a block yesterday, right? Like, you're just going to have pockets of hash and things are going to kind of roll through. When you have a lot of large publicly traded companies, they're looking for SOC 2 in compliance.
Bhutan, man. Bhutan is mining.
Right.
You're going to have different countries. They're going to hate each other because that's what countries do.
Yep.
And then, you're going to have some stuff, coming out of different places. Flag theory for Bitcoin mining has always been part of the model. And hopefully with ocean mining, it's not as concerning, because if you have block construction done by the hasher, it's not as concerning what the pool wants to do. It really isn't. Right? Because, you're constructing the template you want with the transactions that you want. So that is a lot less concerning. Anyways, all right, last little bit of the show. Let's just mention a few project spotlights on Nostr. 2424 2.io. This seems to be high-performant Nostr CDN for Blossom, which is really cool. I tested. It seems to be very fast. And for some weird reason, there's a second one that appeared the same week, Nostr.media. It's another one of these. It seems that they're popping up everywhere. Maybe people are figuring out how to do this cheaply.
Nice.
Froster, simple T of N remote signing and key rotating protocol for Nostr using the power of Frost. I tested this. It's actually really cool.
Very cool. This is the shitpost DAO. You can do a ship, right? You can have your NPub actually be a multi-sig of people that can come together to do stuff, which is nice.
Yeah. Or it can be multiple of your own emails or whatever. Like it really works.
Very nice.
I'm going to go DOS them until they make roster or roaster.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that was my first question to them when they told me. Nostr double ratchet implementation, double ratchet encryption in Nostr. This is another cool way of doing DMs secure. Mm-hmm. Another proposal. DVMCP, bringing MCP servers to Nostr's data vending machines. Mm-hmm. It's a cool little project. Sami's BLE mesh for Nostr when the internet is down. BLE means Bluetooth. Mm-hmm. Welshman, a Nostr toolkit focused on creating a highly configurable client system extracted from Coracle Nostr client. Norma, Nostr relay management panel. Oh, nice. This is being a very wanted little project. Don't know if this one is good, but that's a needed thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wallet Relay, high performance relay for enabling Nostr Wallet Connect and Cashew wallets. Nostr Zero, a web application that allows Nostr to search, visualize Nostr events using npubs. NOF protocol, decentralized two-part authentication and secure document transmission. Hoster, a rental accommodation using purely peer-to-peer technologies such as Nostr. Cool. So yeah, I mean, like, there's so much stuff happening in Nostr. Things are moving fast. Highly recommend checking it out. If you're a Bitcoiner with Nostr derangement syndrome, at least create an account there, just in case Twitter decides that they no longer likes Bitcoiners. And I think with that,
I saw you tweet something about Hamster. I was curious about that. What is that?
So somebody created a library that connects Nostr event retransmission over ham radio using, I think, a JS8 protocol. I can't remember now. So that's really cool.
Nice.
All right, let me read some boosts while you guys pick any other stories you want to read, or we're going to wrap up. All right, so top boost at Chen, open source decentralized CIA. Sounds like y'all need to tap into intellectual Silk Road. Pink Monkey boosted, Anonymous boosted, Martin Barilic, short AI intro, right? Monotashta Masby, Arkansas Traveler was a great song recommendation. Well, yeah, I think we sang that on the last episode, maybe. I think it was Paul, future Paul. Just Pada Zap. All right, guys, thank you for the zaps. It's always fun to receive zaps. And I mean, listen, go look at the whole list. I think we covered maybe like 5% of the list. There is a lot in there. It's a great newsletter on Substack and a lot of good links and good information there. Johnny puts a lot of work into this.
Very high signal. I think this is like the information that gets passed through here, like side swap, taproot assets. Like there's a bunch of stuff we didn't get a chance to go into. Validating lightning signers. So like, yeah, I'd recommend everyone to definitely give that a follow on Substack.
I think this is a much better email to receive from Substack than like pretty much all the other shit that comes to your inbox.
Totally.
So anyways, go check that out. Boys, thank you so much for joining me on this. It was a pleasure. Any final thoughts, Mr. Seared Salmon?
Hope to see you all at Bitcoin Takeover or the BitDevs the night before. Austin's the spot right now. That's it.
Cool, man. Thanks for coming. Mr. Rob.
Yeah, I'll be at Op Next in April. My co-founder Becca's going to be at the Bitcoin Takeover if you want to say hi to her. I am hiring a full stack dev, so hit me up at rob@anchorwatch.com if you're interested in learning more, like maybe getting a policy, agent at anchorwatch.com. Or if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to shoot me a note directly on Twitter or shoot me an email. And thanks for having me on.
This was fun, and you guys have a great day.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.